Hello everyone and welcome back to Rebellious Menstruation. Today's topic is a Q&A and it is what is free bleeding. Free bleeding allows for menstruation without blocking or collecting the period flow. This has been in practice for as much as we can tell with the shady historical record keeping, particularly surrounding women in general, but menstruation specifically, for centuries. So we think this has been around for centuries. I've spoken about period poverty in a previous Q&A, and it is a topic which should be taken very, very seriously. However, for the purposes of this video, we are discussing the choice to free bleed, and period poverty where you are unable or do not have the ability to purchase products is not considered to be free bleeding. It is considered to be period poverty. There is a distinct difference, and please don't confuse the two. The inability to afford products should definitely not be correlated or conflated to free bleeding. This is unfair and is correlating a personal choice with forced choices due to poverty. Also, using cloth pads and period underwear is definitively not free bleeding, as you've accounted for the fact that you've accounted for your period by the fact that you're wearing an absorbent pad, either as a cloth pad or period underwear. Also, there's a good thing to point out at this point is that in February 2014, 4chan did a prank that promoted free bleeding as a legitimate alternative to menstrual products, and conflated the prank stated that tampons and pads were a form of patriarchal oppression. This is obviously written by boys who forgot how Google works. As previously stated, free bleeding has been around for centuries, and in addition, there is nothing medically actually wrong with free bleeding, in spite of the ridiculous Spectator article by James Delingpole, who 100% bought into the 4chan hoax and has skipped all of his research. I'm not sure if any actually women read 4chan due to the misogynistic behaviour that generally comes out of 4chan. However, the only people who seem fooled by this hoax event are the actual men involved. And, the men who maybe have read the article. Because men don't necessarily understand menstruation in the first place, which is disappointing, but is reflective of our general biological education across the board. It is kind of ridiculous that this misogynistic satire to have even been alluded to in a serious way or in a remotely serious way, because it was obviously ridiculous. So, back to free bleeding. While wealthy women traditionally could afford not only extra clothing but cleaner rags to wear, most non-wealthy women did not have this advantage and often took to, for what is better use of words, free bleeding into their clothes. However, just to make it clear, free bleeding means nothing. So quite often, even if you were wearing underwear or track pants, this is not actually considered free bleeding. They say that you should not be wearing any barrier to the bleeding essentially exiting your body, and you should maybe be sitting on like a towel or absorbent thing that would then take the blood away. If you're wearing something that would absorb the blood like track pants or underwear and track pants, some people would classify that as not free bleeding. So again, most non-wealthy women did not have this advantage and often free bled into their undergarments, which were a lot looser back then, and therefore you wouldn't necessarily have underwear as we would classify it today, and certainly not tight enough underwear today to, say, have cloth or rags against you. There is at least minimal evidence of free bleeding as far back as the 17th century. However, while modernists define free bleeding as vulvar nudity, no underwear, pants, skirts, cups, tampons or pads, often it has not been historically defined as such. Often free bleeding simply meant no direct product, such as cloth, underwear or rags, and women bled into their undergarments, such as petticoats. And often these had dark to black coloured colouring on these undergarments. However, it has been suggested that red was used to kind of hide the stains. This doesn't really actually make sense, because if you've ever bled onto something that was red, it certainly didn't hide any blood stains. And this has been more conflated to, or more correlated to the fact that red was a popular colour at the time for petticoats and actually had nothing to do with the menstruation. And frequently red petticoats was more associated with fashion. Reports of both cotton and linen as pads that were wadded up and worn between the legs, and linen was possibly more widely used as it was more accessible worldwide, whereas cotton wasn't necessarily as widespread outside of probably upper class. Both have been suggested that wool and linen have been used in conjunction with free bleeding during these times. Currently, a lot of articles that expout free bleeding during times are usually expout them during times of being at home by simply sitting on a towel and we're all wearing track pants while out. But there are also comments on free bleeding into period underwear. This is not really free bleeding as stated before, so while researching this for this video, I kind of went quite down a rabbit hole of conflicting ideas. However, much like switching to menstrual cups and cloth pads and period underwear, most practitioners will state that free bleeding, if for only at home, has reduced pain, cramps, contact dermatitis, and shame present in menstruation, as in the internalized shame that they felt about it. While on this topic, it would be remiss of me not to mention that Harvard MBA graduate and drummer Madam Gandhi ran the 26.2 mile or 42.2 kilometre for everybody else London Marathon while free bleeding. I will link her blog post below, and she also did a TED talk that is freely searchable on YouTube, which you are watching this on now, and she of course sparked a conversation in 2015 about this topic that overshadowed a lot of the non-controversial topics and allowed a more free dialogue about it. I hope all this information helps you out, and enjoy your morning, afternoon and night depending on where you are in the day, and I hopefully will see you all next video. Bye everyone.